So let's talk about Isaiah. Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, was written by Isaiah the prophet, who was confronting a nation drowning in sin and pointing out what God sees. The whole political system was corrupt. The spiritual leadership in the society was also corrupt. The people of the country were materialists. When we get to chapter 5, do you know what it says about the people? It says that they built houses next to each other, leaving no room around the houses because they wanted to put as many houses as they could on one little piece of land. And back then, that was really hard for people because everyone had to have a garden, and so they could only buy a house because the people were so grasping in their materialism. They were drunken. It says that they drank their wine not out of a cup. They drank it out of a bowl. You understand? They really were loving to drink. They were pleasure-seeking. They were defiant in their sinfulness. They were morally perverse. In fact, there's an Old Testament word, kadosh, that was used for males pursuing males. And it said that there was great, what we would call today, homosexuality, that was a moral perversion. Plus, they were arrogant and conceited. I don't know if you've ever seen a proud person. Bonnie and I were traveling and we went through an airport, and there was this group that walked through the airport, and they just walked through and bumped everybody like no one else was in the airport. They acted like they were the only ones there, and they just were, you could see on their faces, they were so arrogant and conceited, and they just pushed everybody out of the way. That's what the whole nation of Israel was like. And those are the specific sins that God identified for why he sent the Assyrians and the Babylonians to judge Israel. So that's what the book of Isaiah is about. Now, just back up. Think about what it means to live where the political leaders and the church leaders, the spiritual leaders, are corrupt. That means you can't turn anywhere. You go to church and they're corrupt. You work in society and the people making the laws and everything are corrupt too. So it's kind of like you're hopeless. You're living around people that don't care about other people. They only care about more for themselves. They're drunk. Did you know when people are drunk, drunk drivers, they kill other people, they don't even know it, right? They're just without any concern. Defiant in their sinfulness. It's like, I'm going to sin no matter what the law says. Morally perverse. By the way, what had Israel come to in this time? They had come to baby sacrifice. In the valley of Topheth, it's called, the Hinnom Valley, the people burned their babies on a fire alive as an offering to Moloch, the horrible god of the pagans. In fact, the king at this time, his name was Hezekiah, his son, Manasseh, was the very worst of all the kings of Israel. So there was moral perversion and that arrogant conceit. On top of that, the Assyrians were at the door. Remember the terrorists that, by the way, the Assyrians also impaled people. They would put them on a stake, like a marshmallow that you're skewering. They just push people on stakes. They would cut them and put the piles, like I told you. Those people were at the door of Jerusalem. The Babylonians, which were going to conquer the Assyrians, were right behind them. Jewish society, because politically and religiously it was corrupt, was rotting. The temple worship was dying out. People didn't even want to go to the temple. And this worship of Satan causing the baby burning was growing. Now, isn't that interesting? If I say enough, do you know what this sounds like? Have you ever thought about this? This is much like what American society is like right now. We have all those same elements. Did you know right now the fastest growing campus movement are Satanism clubs? Did you know that Christianity is dying out. The Southern Baptists are losing. I mean, the Southern Baptists are kind of the bellwether. They're kind of like the American denomination, the biggest one. Their number of people attending is going, if you look at a graph, it's going just like this. Churches are, COVID just about wiped out, many churches. You add on that, our society is rotting. We can't even get political people on a microphone to say, what is a man? You can't get someone to say what is a man and what is a woman because it's politically incorrect to differentiate between males and females. Right now we have 6'4" men parading as women winning women's swimming contest. Are you all reading the news? I mean, the number one woman swimmer in the world is a 6'4" man at University of Pennsylvania. I mean, one of the female volleyball players came down from a spike and broke the teeth out of one of his fellow players. He was on the women's volleyball team, and he's a 6 foot, 200-pound man. I mean, yeah, I like that. You're going, what? Doesn't that sound crazy? That's what American society is like. It's quite similar. And by the way, the Assyrians and Babylonians for us are the Chinese and the Russians. We know from Scripture China and Russia are around at the end. Do you know what is not in the Bible? America. So that's something to think about. How do you live in a society like that? Well, that's what the whole book of Isaiah is about. I think that's why it's the most exciting book. Any of you that are Americans, maybe the Canadians, are living in a society, and some of the Koreans, and maybe some of those from Taiwan, and some from Japan, are living in a society that's very much like Isaiah's, where Christianity is either non-existent or declining, where morals are either non-existing or going down, and where everything that was normal is crumbling.